Imagine this. You wake up one morning, check your phone, and the world tells you, again, that happiness is just one step away. One more achievement, one more lover, one more zero in your bank account. Just a little more, and you'll finally be whole. But deep down, a part of you already knows. It's a lie. It's the same lie we've all been sold since childhood. That life is meant to be a steady climb toward a permanent state of joy. That suffering is an error. That pain means something's wrong. But what if suffering isn't a glitch? What if it's the system? Arthur Schopenhauer, often called the philosopher of pessimism, saw through the illusion. To him, life wasn't a path to happiness. It was a cycle, a loop, a treadmill powered by desire, one that never ends. He believed that the very nature of existence is not about fulfillment, but craving. You want, you strive, you win, and then you want again. The moment you reach the summit, the mountain grows taller. Sound familiar? Think of the last thing you wanted so badly. A job, a relationship, a status symbol. Now ask yourself, how long did the joy last? An hour? A day? A week before something else started gnawing at your mind? Schopenhauer didn't say this to depress us. He said it to wake us up. Because only when we confront the truth of the lie, this beautiful, seductive lie that promises lasting joy, can we begin to free ourselves from it. And what lies beyond that lie is something far more powerful than happiness. It's clarity. It's understanding. It's the first step to real peace. So stay with me, because what we'll uncover next isn't just philosophy. It's survival, and it might just change how you see everything. Deep beneath our thoughts, our dreams, our goals, lies something ancient, primitive, unconscious. Schopenhauer called it the will to live. But don't let the name fool you. This isn't some noble life force. It's not reason or spirit or even ambition. It's a blind, directionless, insatiable hunger. A force that doesn't care if you're happy, only that you keep moving, wanting, reaching, struggling. It's the reason we always crave more. The reason why, even in moments of triumph, there's a whisper in our mind, what's next? You get the promotion, and now you want the raise. You fall in love, and now you fear losing them. You buy the dream house, and suddenly it's just a house with leaky pipes and noisy neighbors. That's the will. And here's the truth Schopenhauer exposed. You don't control it. It controls you. You're not the master of your desires. You're the puppet. And every time you think you've made it, the will simply moves the finish line. It's not malicious. It doesn't think. It just wants. And it uses you to keep wanting. Think about that for a moment. What if the anxiety you feel isn't because you're broken, but because you're functioning exactly as the will intended? Always hungry, never satisfied, never still. Schopenhauer saw this endless craving not as a path to greatness, but as a trap, one that modern life only tightens. Social media, advertising, pop culture, they all feed the will. They keep you spinning on the wheel with promises of happiness just over the horizon. But that horizon never arrives. And here's where it gets darker. Even when you get what you want, there's no peace. Because the will doesn't rest. Ever. Not until death. So, what do you do with that knowledge? Collapse into despair? Or, could this brutal truth be the key to freedom? In the next part, we'll face the full weight of that cycle and ask, what happens when you chase desire to the end and still feel empty? What happens when happiness just doesn't come? Stay with me. We were told a lie, a beautiful one, a comforting one, and most dangerously, a believable one. We were told that if we work hard enough, love deeply enough, chase our dreams bravely enough, we will be happy. That happiness waits for us like a prize at the end of a race, like a reward for all our pain. But what if that isn't true? Schopenhauer didn't just challenge this illusion, he shattered it. To him, happiness isn't the destination. It's the bait. It's the carrot that keeps the donkey moving forward. It's the trick the will plays on us to keep the game going. Think about it. How many times in your life have you said, "If I can just get this one thing, I'll be happy"? And then you got it. And what happened? The high faded. The joy turned to dust. And suddenly, you were reaching for something else. That isn't failure. That's the design. Because happiness, in Schopenhauer's view, isn't sustainable. It's not a permanent state. It's a brief pause in the pain, a flicker of light before the next shadow. And once you taste it, the will uses that memory to drive you even harder. Not because it cares if you're fulfilled, but because it must keep wanting. The lie we're sold is that happiness is out there, if we just keep striving. But the truth is far more painful. Happiness is manufactured inside the trap. It's used to keep you running in circles. And the more you chase it, the more you're enslaved by it. This realization cuts deep, because it means the systems we live in, the goals we chase, the lives we idolize, aren't designed to fulfill us. They're designed to keep us hungry, to keep us moving, to keep the will alive. So what now? Do we give up? We wake up. We stop mistaking the bait for the reward, and we begin to seek something deeper, something the will can't touch. In the next part, we'll confront the darkest truth of all, that suffering isn't a bug in the system. It is the system. And maybe, just maybe, accepting that is the beginning of freedom. We treat suffering like a mistake, like something that went wrong, a malfunction in the system. We look at pain and ask, why is this happening to me? As if suffering were rare, abnormal, something to be eliminated. But what if Schopenhauer was right? What if the real mistake is thinking that life was ever supposed to feel good? According to him, suffering isn't the exception. It's the rule. It's the ground beneath our feet. Not a detour, but the path itself. This is not a comforting idea, but it might be the most honest one you'll ever hear. Every living being is driven by lack, by need, by hunger, by dissatisfaction. We move through life propelled by a sense that something is missing. And even when we find moments of joy, they are surrounded, inevitably, by unease. A moment of peace is simply the absence of immediate pain, not the reversal of it. Joy doesn't cancel suffering. It merely interrupts it. And those who cling to happiness as a permanent state, they are the most disillusioned of all. Look around. The happiest people you know still hurt. They still lose loved ones. They still face disease, failure, betrayal, aging, death. The world doesn't pause its cruelty because you smiled yesterday. And yet, we resist this truth. We build entire societies to avoid discomfort. Endless entertainment, comfort food, quick pleasures, shiny distractions. But Schopenhauer believed that our suffering is not just unavoidable. It is embedded in the very structure of existence. Why? Because we are built to want. And wanting is a form of suffering. This is the curse of the will to live. It keeps you reaching, chasing, striving, never arriving. It fuels ambition, yes, but also addiction. It creates purpose, but also pain. So what are we supposed to do? First, we stop lying to ourselves. We stop pretending that suffering is a glitch. And instead, we stare it in the face. Not to be crushed by it, but to begin understanding it. Because only when you see the system clearly can you begin to escape it. In the next part, we'll explore Schopenhauer's answer to this bleak reality. Not through denial, but through transcendence. If suffering is the rule, and desire is the prison, then is there any way out? Schopenhauer didn't offer false hope. He didn't tell us that life could be made easy or endlessly joyful. But he did offer something radical, an escape hatch. Not a permanent one, but a window. A way to break free, momentarily, from the relentless grip of the will. That escape? Article music. Beauty. The sublime. According to Schopenhauer, when we experience beauty, truly experience it, we are lifted out of ourselves, out of our cravings, out of our needs, out of time. In that moment, we are no longer striving beings. We are simply beholding. And in the act of beholding, the will pauses. Think of the last time you lost yourself in a piece of music, or stood breathless before a mountain, a painting, a sunset, or a poem that pierced your soul. Didn't everything else disappear? Didn't the gnawing desires, the doubts, the questions, all fade away? That, Schopenhauer says, is transcendence, not mystical, not magical, but deeply human. You become, for a few seconds or minutes, pure awareness, not chasing, not lacking, just seeing, just hearing, just feeling. And in that space, the will, this engine of suffering, goes silent. This is why art matters, not as decoration, not as status, but as salvation. True art doesn't sell you a fantasy. It reveals reality and helps you survive it. Schopenhauer considered music the highest form of this escape. Because music, unlike other arts, doesn't represent the world. It is the world. It taps directly into the structure of reality, the rhythms, tensions, and harmonies that mirror the will itself. And when we listen deeply, we feel not separate from life, but in communion with it. This is what makes beauty sacred. Not because it fixes life, but because it briefly frees us from its weight. Not forever, but just enough to breathe again, just enough to go on. So maybe this is where we start. Not by trying to conquer the will, but by learning how to escape it. Not with drugs, not with distractions, but with attention, with awe, with a willingness to step into the quiet spaces of being, where the world reveals its raw, terrible, and breathtaking truth. In the next part, we'll go deeper, into the second way Schopenhauer says we can transcend suffering, compassion. Because while art frees us from the will, compassion might be the only thing that redeems it. If life is suffering, if we are all trapped in a cycle of craving, disappointment, and despair, then what could possibly redeem such a world? Schopenhauer had an answer. Not in wealth, not in power, not even in knowledge, but in compassion. Because the one thing that connects every human being, no matter their status, beliefs, or circumstances, is pain. We are all, Schopenhauer says, united by the wound. We may not share the same goals, we may not speak the same language, but we all bleed, we all lose, we all long and suffer. And once we truly see that, once we recognize the suffering in another as equal to our own, the will pauses again, not because of art this time, but because of love. Compassion, to Schopenhauer, is the only moral force, the only true ethical compass, because it's the only moment where the ego softens, where we stop seeing the world through the lens of me and mine, and begin to feel the pain of others as our own. In that moment, something profound happens. The will, that beast that only screams, I want, I want, I want, is silenced by a whisper. You matter too. Why is this so powerful? Because the will thrives on separation, on selfishness, on comparison and control. But compassion dissolves those boundaries. It reminds us that we're not the only ones hurting. And that subtle shift from self-obsession to shared humanity is, to Schopenhauer, the closest we'll get to moral transcendence. It's not religion. It's not law. It's the simple recognition. I see your pain, and it is mine too. When we act with compassion, we interrupt the will's program. We stop playing the endless game of more. We stop stepping over others to climb a ladder that leads nowhere. And we begin to feel again. In a world driven by survival, compassion is the ultimate rebellion. To care, deeply and inconveniently, is a radical act. It goes against the instincts of the will. It says, even though I too am suffering, I choose to lessen yours. Not for glory, not for gain, but because that is what it means to be human. So if you're looking for redemption in a world that feels cold and cruel, start here. With one small act of empathy, with one moment of kindness, with one courageous choice to reach across the gap and say, you're not alone. In the next part, we'll explore why, even when we know all this, we still suffer, and how embracing the full truth of suffering might be the only way to become truly free. You understand it now. You've seen the will for what it is, that endless hunger, that blind engine beneath all striving. You've touched beauty. You've felt the soft grace of compassion. You know that the world is full of suffering. So why do you still suffer? Why, even with all this awareness, do the old cravings return? Why does the longing sneak back in through the cracks of your silence? Schopenhauer would say, because truth alone is not liberation. It is only the door, and opening it is not the same as walking through. The will is not an idea. It's a force. You can't reason it away. You can't negotiate with it like some clever philosopher debating a point. It lives in your bones. It pulses through your desires. It is you, until you choose something else. But that choice isn't made once. It's made every single moment. And often, it's not made at all. Because the will does not want to die quietly. It screams. It manipulates. It tells you, one more achievement, one more lover, one more dollar, then peace. And you listen. Not because you believe it, but because it's familiar. Because it hurts less, for a moment, than the silence. Knowing the truth does not make you immune to suffering. It makes you awake within it. You begin to suffer consciously. Not like before, where you blamed the world, your past, your circumstances. Now, you see the pattern. You see your participation in it. And that can be even more painful. But it's also the beginning of freedom. Because suffering with awareness is different from blind pain. It gives you the space to ask, what am I feeding right now, the will or my freedom? Sometimes you will still choose the will. You will still reach for the dopamine, the distraction, the illusion. You're human. But now, you'll know. And that knowing, slowly, becomes strength. Awareness is not the cure, but it is the path, the first step, and every step after. Schopenhauer didn't offer a magic answer. He didn't say, know this, and you'll never hurt again. He said, know this, and suffer with wisdom. Suffer with clarity, with eyes open, with a heart that still chooses compassion even when it's tired, and a mind that refuses to numb itself with lies. That is why we still suffer. Because the will is tireless, and we are learning how to say no to it. One breath at a time. In the next part, we'll explore the mirror opposite of suffering, the rare golden moments of transcendence, and why they matter more than you think. What if I told you that in the middle of all this, the hunger, the suffering, the ache that never ends, there are moments, fleeting, rare, but unmistakable, when the noise of the will goes silent. No craving, no needing, no trying to be anything else, just being. This is transcendence. Schopenhauer saw it not as salvation, not something that would cure the human condition, but as a breath of fresh air in a room where we've forgotten what breathing feels like. Think of the last time you were so immersed in a piece of music, a film, a landscape, a painting, that you forgot yourself. Time melted. Desire faded. There was no me reaching for anything, only presence. In that moment, the will is quiet. The world, for once, is enough. Why does that matter? Because those moments remind us that not all of life is suffering, that buried beneath the layers of striving and dissatisfaction, there is a stillness we rarely touch. But when we do, it changes us. Schopenhauer didn't believe we could live in that state all the time. The will is too strong, the world too relentless. But he believed those glimpses matter, because they point to something real, something beyond the cycle. They are not escapism. They are truth revealed through beauty, clarity, and presence. They are the proof of possibility, that a human being is more than just a vessel for craving, that, even for a moment, we can rise above it. He called this the aesthetic experience. Art, nature, philosophy, these weren't just entertainment or hobbies to him. They were lifelines, and we need them now more than ever. In a world that constantly pulls us back into the cycle, more screens, more content, more noise, these glimpses are radical. They reconnect us with the part of ourselves that is whole, even when we lack. Peaceful even when life is hard, still. Even while everything rushes by. That's why transcendence matters. Not because it erases suffering, but because it proves we are not only suffering. It reminds us that we can return to the stillness through art, through presence, through connection, and that in doing so, we can carry a little more peace back into the chaos. In the next part, we'll explore Schopenhauer's answer to a haunting question. If we know life is suffering, then why go on living? If life is suffering, if desire never ends, if peace is only temporary, then why go on? It's the question we're too afraid to ask out loud, but it haunts the quiet moments, after the disappointment, after the success that didn't satisfy, after the silence when we're finally alone with our thoughts. Arthur Schopenhauer didn't flinch from this question. He faced it head-on, and what he found was not a grand justification for life, but a quiet, radical truth. We go on because something deeper than happiness keeps us here. It's not the promise of pleasure, not the pursuit of success, not even hope. It's the will itself, that blind, tireless force within us that wants, strives, persists, even when we don't understand why. Schopenhauer called it the will to live. It's not rational. It doesn't make sense, but it's real. It's what makes the tree reach toward sunlight, what keeps your heart beating when you're too tired to care, what pulls you out of bed on the worst days, not because you want to, but because you're alive. And here's the paradox. The same will that causes suffering is also the will that carries us through it. That's not optimism. It's not comfort. But it is clarity. We go on not because life is easy, but because something inside us refuses to quit. And there's more. For Schopenhauer, the value of life wasn't in escaping suffering, but in facing it, and still choosing compassion, still choosing beauty, still choosing not to turn away from others in pain. In a world where we are all trapped in this same cycle, the most courageous act is not to deny the darkness, but to bring light into it anyway, to help someone, to make something beautiful, to understand, to endure with dignity. These are not flashy victories, but they are real ones. They're the quiet ways we say, yes, life is hard, and I'm still here. That's what Schopenhauer offered. Not salvation, not false promises, but a deep, gritty kind of truth. That staying alive, with eyes wide open, is itself an act of meaning. And in the final part of this video, we'll ask the question that ties it all together. If life is suffering, can we still make it beautiful? So now we arrive at the end of our descent. Or perhaps the beginning. After all the questions, all the darkness, after peeling back the comforting illusions, what are we left with? A world filled with pain, a self tormented by endless desire, a life with no promises, no guarantees, no grand purpose etched in the stars. And yet, we are still here, still breathing, still feeling, still wondering what to do with all of this. So how do you live, truly live, when you know life is suffering? How do you walk forward once the curtain has been pulled back? Here is Schopenhauer's final answer. You live with eyes wide open, not chasing illusions, not begging for meaning, not pretending everything is fine, but walking into the storm, knowing it will rain, and choosing to walk anyway. You accept the will, not with celebration, but understanding. You no longer expect it to satisfy. You no longer obey every craving. You see it for what it is, a force, not a truth. And in that awareness, you gain a kind of freedom. The freedom to step off the treadmill of endless desire. The freedom to suffer with dignity. The freedom to choose compassion over competition. To create beauty instead of chasing pleasure. To pause, look around, and say, I see the darkness. I see the hunger. I see the pain. But I will not let it harden me. This is not the freedom sold by modern culture. It's deeper, quieter, stronger. It's the freedom of the artist who paints to express pain, not escape it. The freedom of the caregiver who shows up every day, even when there is no reward. The freedom of the thinker who stares into the abyss and chooses to build a bridge. You don't live in spite of suffering. You live with it. Because to live any other way is to sleep through life. Schopenhauer doesn't offer hope in the conventional sense. He doesn't promise that everything will get better. But he gives us something far more powerful. The permission to stop lying to ourselves. And the courage to ask, if this is life, then how will I respond? That response is where meaning is made. Not given, not found, made. So here we are. The world hasn't changed, but maybe you have. Maybe the next time you feel the ache of wanting, you'll pause. The next time the pain hits, you'll remember you're not alone. And the next time someone else is suffering, you'll reach out, not because you expect a reward, but because you understand. And if even a few of us begin to live this way, eyes open, hearts clear, maybe, just maybe, we'll make this difficult life a little more bearable for each other. And that is enough.